Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting for Taber Town Council, October 28, 2019. Our first item of business, we have the organizational meeting of Town Council to attend to. So I will call that meeting to order and ask for adoption of the agenda as presented. Councillor Thames.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And for the record, Councillor Beckering was not able to attend to tonight's meeting. Also on to item number 3, item 3.1, council participation of boards, committees, and commissions. Mr. Armfeld.
Yeah, we've broken this meeting up into 3 main components of internal and requested and then ad hoc committees that you all sit on. So the first one is the regular or internal boards and committees that you participate in. Not sure if there's any changes to that list, but we are ready to guide you through that process if there are.
All right, thank you. So just to confirm, I don't believe we have any change requests on these listed committees and or boards, correct? All right, so I would ask for a motion on that particular requirement. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council approves the council appointments to the various council boards, committees, and commissions as presented, a listing which is attached to and forms part of these minutes.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 3.2. Mr. Armfeld, that's also just a continuation.
Yes, please, sir. Just continuing along, and if there are any changes, then it would be adopted as amended.
All right, and I do believe there is a couple of asks here. If I can get that confirmation from our council members. Councillor Garner.
Yes, I'm asking to step off of the Handy Bus Association, and my fellow councillor, Councillor Stroas, is willing to take that spot.
Mr. Stroas, you're all right with that?
Yes, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. And also, I believe one other ask from Councillor Stroas.
Yes, Your Worship, I would like to step down from the Taber District Housing Authority, and Councillor Tam has agreed to step forward and take that committee.
All right, Councillor Tams, you're able to confirm that?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So those changes will be noted accordingly. And just to confirm, I don't believe there's anything else on this list then, correct? That's good, everything else covered. All right, and just to confirm, you would need that in the way of the motion to direct that also?
You can pass that as amended, essentially
Just
the
as
recommended motion, but instead of as presented, as amended.
And that will cover it with what was just discussed.
We've captured your amendments. Yep.
Very good. All right, thank you. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Stroas.
Motion that council approves the requested appointments of council members to the various boards and committees as amended, a listing which is attached to and forms part of these minutes.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And on to item 3.3. That's for clarification. I don't believe there was any ask that I'm aware of, unless somebody has an ask at this stage. All right, someone prepared to make a motion. Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council approves the requested appointments of council members to the various ad hoc committees as presented, a listing of which is attached to and forms part of these minutes.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And on to item 4, appointment of deputy mayor. Item 4.1. Mr. Armfeld.
Yeah, this is administration's time to reconfirm that the numbers 1 to 6 that make the portion of the recommended motion are still accurate and the desire of council.
Right, so the next change would be as of November 1st with the changing of the guard, so to speak, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. Any questions, concerns? Someone prepared to make the motion? Councillor Chavez.
Worship, I'll make the motion that council approves the appointment of deputy mayors for an 8-month term as follows, 1 through 6.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to media and inquiries. Taber Times, Trevor. All right, thank you. And just a motion to close the meeting, please. Councillor Garner.
Make that motion that we close this portion of the meeting.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And on to the regular council meeting agenda. I will call that meeting to order. And I believe there's been an ask to add one item in the closed session 9.4 related to a land proposal and subject 16.1 of the FOIP Act. Mr. Arthur, is that correct?
Yes, we could call it a land proposal request, subject to 16.1 of the FOIP Act.
All right, thank you. Everybody okay with that? Someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Tams?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the agenda as amended with the addition of 9.1 presentation regarding land thing as per 16.1 of FOIP.
Just to clarify, it's going to 9.4, I believe?
9.4, yes.
Correct, all right. Okay, motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. On to adoption of the minutes, item 3.1, Mr. Armfield.
Yes, these are the meeting minutes from the last regular held council meeting, October the 15th, for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Anything arising? Someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Garner.
Prepared to make that motion, Mr. Mayor, that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on October 15th, 2019 as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. On to item 4, business arising. There are none. Bylaws. Item 5.1, proposed bylaw 15-2019. Mr. Armfield.
Administration has brought back the traffic control bylaw for council's consideration. There was a number of things that were requested to be amended, and we took the liberty of passing it to the Taber Police Service for their consideration as well. So there's some verbiage coming out of that. Ms. DeBona can run us through those changes and make the presentation, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bono.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councillors.
Good afternoon.
So you previously had adopted the Traffic Control Bylaw 6/2005. We worked with the Taber Police Service to review and update the bylaw to current standards and practices. And then we have a few proposed changes. I've highlighted them in the copy of the bylaw for you. So section 3.06, we did an addition regarding the handing out of candy from parade entries just to establish some rules for floats, just because that's been an issue in past years. Section 11.24, we had an addition regarding CAO authorization to grant permission for for trailer parking that doesn't fall within the guidelines of the bylaw currently, so they can give special permission. Section 15.01, we had a change regarding bicycle use on town sidewalks. As per Taber Police Service discretion to enforce whether or not the bike is allowable on the sidewalk. Section 15.09 AI, that's the addition regarding horses, allowable riding areas within the boundaries as per Council's resolution. Section 17.16, the addition regarding non-permanent driveway curb ramp usage as per Council resolution. Section 19.01C, that was the addition regarding cable protector ramps used to cover electrical cords as per Council resolution. We changed Schedule A and updated the truck and dangerous goods route map. That was amended by the Traffic Committee. And Schedule D, we updated all the schedule of fines for the Taber Police Service, mostly just regarding the additions that we've put in, so that there's a fine associated. So if council is okay with those, we can proceed to the first reading.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chavas.
Your Worship, I have some clarification here on 15.01. No person shall ride a bicycle on any sidewalk within the town. I see mom and dad, one or two little tots behind them riding bicycles on town streets all the time. And I believe in the essence of safety, their parents prefer to ride on a town sidewalk with little kids rather than on the street. I'm not comfortable with this, the way it's laid out here. I think I can't pass this the way it is here.
All right. Councillor Bruin, you had a question?
I was just wondering, can we add to this at the discretion of the officer?
Yeah, it'll be up to the discretion of the officer. The chief of police wanted the wording, it used to say up to 16 inches was allowed, the tire size. And we looked at different bylaws. Some were under 12 years of age, some were up to 16 inches in tire size. He would rather it be not allowed and then up to their discretion to enforce that depending on the situation. In his words, if it was a little child or their parents, the police officers would not be bothering with it. But they are having problems with older kids that have smaller bike tire size, that they would just like a firm not allowed, and then whether or not they will enforce that is up to them.
Yeah, I can see the reasoning for it, and I think you made a very good point there, Councillor Strauss.
Your Worship, the perception, though, from the general public is that, that I can't ride on the sidewalk with my children, and they would ride to conform. They would ride on the street because they wouldn't want to get ticketed. So the perception of this bylaw is a little misleading because it's going to put families on the streets with their little kids, and I'm not totally comfortable with the wording on this. I think we need to be a little bit more creative on the wording on this. I understand where the police service is coming from, but as a parent, you're going to say, "Oh, gee, they got this bylaw. I better not take my kids on the street. I'm going to get a ticket." That's the perception of the bylaw, and that would put them on the street, and I think that's the bigger danger here.
All right, anything else? I'm just wondering, Councillor Towns.
I totally agree with Councillor Strovis, and I don't think to have it at discretion or do this or do this. I think we just need to remove it. That the riding bicycles on the sidewalk. You see it all the time, but those that are going to go play around and ride like crazy are going to do it anyway. And I think if we just remove that section of the bylaw about the no bicycles, and then nobody's at fault. Don't like it.
Councillor Bruin.
I can't agree with that part at all, Mr. Towns. Lots of people need to ride on the sidewalk if they're so, but to take a right off, we'll have every bicycle on the sidewalk. I'd say it's a 50-50 now, sidewalk and streets, and to limit, I think your sidewalks will become dangerous if you don't have a bylaw.
Just wondering if there's any merit to this, just going with the age thing as opposed to the wheel size format. Councillor Strauss.
Perhaps some verbiage in there being put on there without due care and consideration for others or something would cover that, so that that it would allow. I mean, if you're riding your bike, conscientiously down the street rather than, and I understand where they're coming with these bikes because they're headed to the spray park or the skate park and whatnot, and I really understand, but I said maybe just a little verbiage change, stating that without due care and attention, or with care and attention.
Just a moment, just a clarification. I assume there was some comparisons, I think you said that, to other bylaws. So this is very similar to some other municipalities you checked into?
Lots of them say not at all. Some say under 12. Some give a tire size. The Traffic Safety Act recognizes bikes as vehicles and that they should be on the streets and following the rules of the road.
Correct, yes. I guess just, there's some teenagers that are riding some pretty small tired bikes. So, it wouldn't just be the little kids riding those particular bicycles, but this might be, as Councillor Strauss indicated, a little strong in some ways there, and I guess some form of amendment that's kind of user friendly to all would maybe be a better solution. Councillor Strauss, you got something to add to that to clarify? I'm not sure about the due care and attention. I mean, that's kind of a fine line there to say that.
Perhaps we should just maybe send this back to the police department and they could rewrite some verbiage in there that would cover that rather than being so straightforward on it. I mean, if the chief was here, I guess maybe he could recommend some verbiage, but I don't know if that's the right verbiage or not without due care and attention.
Councillor Garner, I trust this has come up at the traffic committee level before?
talked about it a little, but
Have you seen this before?
have I seen this particular before? No, not in that form, but I can speak firsthand. Downtown, there's a lot of near hits with maniac bicycle riders on sidewalks, and I can see the merit of doing something like this. And yeah, maybe the verbiage needs to be adjusted. But when you come out of a store and some kid comes flying by you at 20 miles an hour, it could be a pretty serious little accident. So I think something's needed for sure.
Mr. Bruin.
Just to add to that, one of my pet peeves are kids on bicycles that don't obey the laws with pedestrian crossings and whatnot. There's been a lot of near misses with kids that just blow right through the intersection because they think they're a pedestrian. And they don't realize that they have to obey the traffic laws.
Fortunately, it's not just kids there, Councillor Bruin. It's also adults that are setting
I
some
agree.
poor examples.
Sorry, kids.
But, yeah.
Kids raging up to 50.
Yeah, good point. Councillor Thames.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, like if we keep going down that whole section 15, like at 15.05, it talks about skateboards, scooters, hoverboards, roller skates, and that they can't use the sidewalk in any way, shape, or form if they're at a rate of speed that is unreasonable having regard to nature, conditions, and use of sidewalk or trailway. And I think if we added that same section then to the part about bicycles would cover all of it. Then it gives the discretion back to the police service to do something about it. Because I most certainly don't want to be going, you can't ride your bike on the sidewalk with a little kid. I don't think any of us want to do that. But that whole section 15, there's some verbiage in there that covers a lot of it.
Just back to our administration, Mr. Arfeld, would that be a fair request to just have this go back for some kind of tweaking requirement?
Yeah, I mean, I think, let me offer a suggestion just to see how this floats or not. No person over the age of 12 shall ride a bicycle on any sidewalk within the town.
And I get your statement, but then you have the mom and dad and the 2 or 3 little kids, and mom and dad are following their kids on the sidewalk, and they're breaking the law, but the kids aren't.
That's a tough one. I guess just back to the ask, Mr. Arford, if we could just have this go back and maybe with some input from our bylaw and or police chief as far as any
Yeah, oh yeah, we can
formal
send
recommendation.
her around again, no problem.
Yeah, just with some of the concerns that are brought forward, that they've got, I believe, some serious merit to that. For
Yeah,
some
maybe what we
change.
can do is just bring some examples from other municipalities on exactly how they deal with 15.01 in their own bylaws. Then you can do some picking and choosing.
Right, so we're good for bringing that back to the next council meeting. Does that give you enough time, Mr. Bona, to look into that a little further? And thanks so much for what you've done thus far. I know there's been a lot of work and a lot of efforts yourself and or Mr. Scheer. Yes, Mr. Scheer.
Is this council's only concern, or is there others?
That's all I'm hearing. I'm assuming that. Is there anything else related to the changes that's problematic? No, it's all good otherwise, I believe. So just that particular section. All right, so in that case, we don't need to go forward with any motion on this other than just required to be tabled or just to indicate it's going to be brought up for the next.
Yeah, we'll
Council
just
meeting.
bring it back for the next council meeting. I don't think we need
Okay.
a motion. We can look after that ourselves. Yep.
All right, good enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
On to item 6, action item 6.1, franchise fees. Mr. Arfeld.
Yes, Mr. Orwa has crunched some numbers here and is prepared to share some details with council on this front. And Ms. Dam.
Thank you very much, members of council. So now, during the last regular meeting of council, council directed the administration to investigate the reduction of franchise fees and energy conservation funds. But before I dive into that reduction percentages, I would like to highlight a few things here for council. Now, we went around to investigate, and there's some additional information that we found out there that I believe council needs to know before any decision is taken here. Now, first of all, we know that the Alberta Utilities Commission established a maximum percentage of 20% for Fortis and 35% for ATCO Gas. Now, but historically, the town has informed both Fortis and ATCO that the fee will be 20% for Fortis, 20% for ATCO. That's where the breakdown is, probably, that you had not seen before. So with ATCO, the low and medium use was set at 20%, and then the high uses was set at 35%. That's the max. And of course, the high uses, we're talking about 800 gigajoules, 8,000 gigajoules. Now, based on the max and everything that I've just mentioned, we are generating about 1.19 million from Fortis, and then we have 686,000 from ATCO. Now, together, we're talking about almost 1.9 million. So those are facts that we have today. And then based on that, we take the 7.5% of the 1.885 million to generate what goes into the Energy Conservation Fund. So those are some facts that we need to know before we move forward. Then now we can now dive into the request that was made by council, and we go through the percentage reductions. Before we go into those ones, Mr. Amfeld, I want just to bring down the ATCO rate schedule. If you go down to the next one, ATCO rate schedule, the next one, yeah, that one. If you scroll down just a little bit, just right there, maybe if you can expand it a little bit. Now, again, that is one information that probably council had not been seeing before. All you've been seeing before was the one from Fortis. Now, we requested this one so that you see also the breakdown from ATCO, how it varies from one to the other. Now, you can see the riders here. The town of Tabor is sitting at 35%. Vulcan is also sitting at 35%. And then there's variation between the lowest there to a max of 35%. Now, what we didn't have originally was ATCO did break this one down when this thing was signed way back. 20% was only for the low to medium users, and then the high users is the one we have at 35%. Now, let me now go back to my percentages that council had requested, which was the first, that one. So now, council had requested reduction to see how much we're going to lose in revenue so that they see the variations. And I don't know whether you're able to see that very well. Maybe, can I drive in so that we look at it from Excel? Yeah, that one. So I just brought it up here on Excel so that we're able to see exactly the reductions we're making. So now from my original explanation, you can see the summary we have based on the agreements that we have with ATCO. The low to medium users, we are sitting at 20%. That's what we have today. And based on the delivery revenue that we have, we are going to generate a revenue of about 385,848. That is from the low to medium users. Now, on the other side, we also have the summary of the high users, and the high users was set at 35%. So we are going to generate revenue of 300,000. So I've worked out some variations there depending on which direction council might want to go. So I've moved from 20% on the low to medium users up to 10%, so that you see the variations in revenue that we're going to lose. Now, on the other side also, looking at the 35%, for the high-end users, that is over 8,000 gigajoules, I've also moved that percentage down to 20, so that you see the variations in revenue as you take decisions in that particular area. Now, I would like now to tie the actual revenue we are getting from ATCO with the Energy Conservation Fund, because that was another area where you wanted to see some reduction. Now, on this one here in particular, you can see the Energy Efficiency Fund, we are sitting at about 7.5 right now %. So I worked with 5% reduction, I worked with 2.5%, and I worked with 1% as well. Now you can see on this other side, if we move from 20%, that's about 385, 848, to, let's say 12% up in here, we see the variations. If we move to 16%, we also see variations, the loss of revenue that we're going to have. On the other side, if you move from, let's say 35% to 20%, that is the high end to 20%, we're losing about 128,000 in revenue. So that is just a guideline to show you exactly how much revenue we're going to lose if we reduce those percentages. Now, the other part is, what about the energy efficiency fund? If we move, let's say, from 7.5% to 5%, how does it work out? You can see here, 675 is if we were to use 35%, 385, that is if we had 20%. So now if you move from 7.5 to 5, again, you see the loss in revenue there. When you move to 2.5%, it drops to another 10 grand. If you move it to 1%, it drops as well. Then again, I also look at it from the high-end users as well. Now with the high-end users, that is now on the other side, any reduction from 35% to 20% in terms of revenue, how does that translate into the energy efficiency fund? So 7.5% of the high-end users, that is what we're generating as revenue. But if we move to 5%, we'll only be generating 15,000 in revenue. If we move it to 2.5%, we're going to generate 7,000, and then it reduces as you go back. Now, and then you move all the way to 20%. So that is just engagement to show you how much in revenue we're going to lose depending on which direction you want to go. At the same time, I also work, that is just on the ATCO side. Let's also look at Fortis. Okay, now if you look at Fortis again, as I said earlier, when we signed this agreement with the exclusive rights with Fortis, we set the percentage as 20%. Now I've moved the percentage rate from 20 to 10. And you see the variations. Now this other side, this is everything that they've already calculated to us based on the delivery and transmission, including any proposed rate that Fortis has out there. So right now, what we had factored in the budget is the 20%, which is 1.199 million. If we go into 18%, we're going to have 1.09. So in that case, we are losing almost, if we move from 20 to 18, we are losing 119,000 in revenue. When we move to 18%, we are generating 959, so that we lose 239,000. When we move to 14%, we lose 359. And you can see as we lose more percentages in reduction, we are also losing revenue. By the time we go below 10, we shall have lost over 500,000 in revenue. So that is just something out there that probably we wanted to provide to give you some direction when you're taking your decisions. Now, based on the same, again, methodology, in terms of energy efficiency fund, if we maintain the 7.5% at the current revenue, we are going to generate 89,000. That is to be transferred into energy efficiency fund. If we reduce it to 5%, we're only going to transfer 59,000. If we reduce it to 2.5%, we are going to 29 then at that. But if we reduce the percentage to 18, that means we now have less revenue to work with. So we will generate 80,000. That means we've already lost close to 10,000 over there. When we move to 5%, we shall have lost again more. So we lose again as we go forward. So that is part of the request that was given that we need to work with to let you have your decisions. And again, probably as we go along to start discussing this particular area, also consider the impact whatever we have explained there, we'll have on the budget that is already balanced at this particular point in time. At the same time, also consider what you're going to discuss in that area in terms of the provincial budget cuts that are out there. We lose revenue here and maybe potential loss of revenue in other areas as well. I think with that, I'll open the floor for discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roy. Any questions arising? Councillor Strauss.
Your Worship, I fully understand all this here. And I think the provincial government, told us, all of us, to tighten our belts. I got just a couple bills here in front of me. In the month of April, I paid $22 on a local access fee of Tabor to Fortis, and for ATCO Gas, I paid $12. So I mean, there's $35 to $40 a month that's going to local access fees, franchise fees, whatever you want to call it. And a portion of that, of course, is going into the Energy Conservation Fund, the Green Fund. And I still think it's time we took a strong look at this and reduce those, and the reduction to come out of the Energy Green Fund rather than out of the operating fund, which is the bulk of it, which goes into. If we reduce what goes into the energy fund, and then perhaps, if a project does come up, there's still a little bit of money in there, we can take a look at it and say, okay, so we're going to spend $1 million on whatever green initiative we have, but show the residents their ROI, the return on investment, by investing that money in green energy. Because we make changes, we put in energy efficient lights and whatnot, but we don't show the savings that's coming back to the residents. And I have a problem with that, and I think it's time that we became a little more fiscally responsible, showing where those tax dollars are going that we're collecting from our residents, and showing them that we are saving the money. And I think this is one way we can do that, by reducing the franchise fees and putting a little less into the green fund. And then when we do a green fund, be a lot more demonstrative as to far as what the return on investment is by investing that money in green energy or a green facility, whatever we do.
All right, Councillor Bruin.
A question for Councillor Strobus. Now, if we drop this fee, which I don't agree with, I think it should remain as it is, where are you going to get that money from that we've just given up? And one thing I like about the franchise fees, everyone pay. Your renters pay. That's their only contribution to the town taxes. I think it's justifiable to keep it the way it is.
Councillor Bruin, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying it's time we tightened our belts a little bit, become a little more aware of what we're doing with our residents' dollars, and the money that the reduction should come out of money going into the green fund rather than the portion of money that goes into the operations of the budget.
Mr. Bruin.
We still use that money that goes into the green funds, Councillor Strobus. We've contributed a lot of that to different projects. And with the way the solar power and all these other wind farms now are changing, I think we'd be foolish not to invest into our energy conservation fund. And if you take this money away, we're going to have to take it back from somewhere else. So it's kind of we've argued about this for the last 6 years, and it's been the same argument every time.
Councillor Towns.
This first come up, and then we had tabled this, so we brought it back so we could have some facts and figures and numbers. And had we voted on the last meeting, I would have proposed that we drop everything 5%, from the high end to everything. Today, I will not say that, because that's just way too much of a drop in revenue for the town to absorb. I still do believe that we need to drop our franchise fees, and I think we're going to have to do over a number of years, because I don't believe we're going to be able to drop 5% off of Fortis and ATCO and 5% off the high end. So I think, we need to be realistic because we have a balanced budget that we've been presented with, that we were approved. And I think if we did take it out of the energy stabilization fund, but if we go with 5%, I think we're looking at far too much. So in my mind, I'm comfortable if we dropped it to 2% and took it right out of the green fund. But I think in order to get down 5%, and that was my own thought, we're going to have to do it over time because it's going to leave us as a town and in a real tough pickle. How are we going to keep balancing our budgets? But I believe we have to start dropping it.
Mr. Chavez.
So Tams, I could meet you on that, saying, okay, we drop it by the 2%, but those funds, the shortage is attributed to the green fund rather than to the operating budget.
I would totally agree. I'll agree to the green fund.
All right. Anything else arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Chavez.
That council directs administration to reduce the 2020 franchise fee by 2% and with the shortfall being taken out of the green fund, not the operating budget. I'm not quite sure where that percentage would come, Mr. Orr. That's something that you would have to take a look at and see. But
I think that would be the second motion, Councillor Strovis, that
yeah.
Council directs administration to contribute 5% of the franchise fee revenue at the end of conversation if we're dropping 2%. Right? That number would have to go into the second motion.
Okay. I'd take that as a friendly amendment.
I think we need to stay. There's 2 motions here.
Okay.
I think one is one would be to drop the franchise fees 2% for ATCO, Fortis, and all the 3 groups, and then the second motion would have to be where the money goes.
Then I'll rephrase that. I withdraw that first motion, and that council directs administration to drop the 2020 franchise fee by 2% to Fortis and ATCO Gas.
All right, just a clarification question for administration. If that's the case, does whatever that 2% figure would be, does the green fund handle that? Is it covered?
So just to understand the motion, so from what I hear from that motion is it is the riders that we're going to reduce by 2%. So right now we have 20% on low medium use, so that will be 18%. And then when you go to high-end users, it's 35%. So 2 down, that will be 33%. I just want to make sure that that's the direction we're taking. And then for 40s, it's 20%. So you want to make it 18%. Is that correct?
That would be correct, dropping it all by 2%.
So in other words, the revenue, the franchise revenue coming in will be reduced by 2% across the board. What about the energy efficiency fund?
That's what I was trying to clarify.
Covered in the second motion then.
Well, that's what I was trying to clarify. I'm not understanding.
So the question, Mr. Orwa, is if we drop 2% from the total, are we going to be putting any money into the energy conservation fund at all?
Is the clarification I was seeking from council.
Yeah, so that's the question. So what gives us, what's the revenue loss at 2% across the board for each of those?
Have to work that one out, all those numbers. But I had a different thought though. I have a different thought to present to council in terms of reduction, if they might consider. Because the high-end users are at 35%, these are people using almost 8,000 gigajoules. Maybe that's another way of attracting business into our community.
No, I think we have to stay the track here, Mr. Orwa. We've been given direction. Let's stay that course. So the question is a 2% reduction from the total, what is the value of that? If each of those drops. Do you have a gross value for everything that comes out of the everything that the total figure for all of the franchise fees?
So the total franchise fee, just say put equals 141,000 times 98%, 98%, equals. So that will be the neighborhood. Because
So- What is it, sorry?
about 138,000.
138,000. And so what were we typically putting into the green fund every year?
That is 141,000 was what we put in green fund in 2020.
How much, sorry?
140,000.
Okay, so the proposal is to drop it 100 and what?
If we were to drop
Can we make that number bigger for me? Because if I can't understand it, then that number that you just calculated, that's going to be the reduction.
I think let's do it this way. We look at the overall revenue, franchise revenue coming in. So put equals 1,885,936. So that is the total franchise revenue money coming in, right, for 2020.
That's
So-
1 million.
1.85.
Can you make it bigger?
Yeah,
Of course.
let's zoom into that thing, because those are the only numbers we care about now.
Let's make it bigger. Yeah. So just below there, calculate 2% of that number. Just below it equals 2%. 2. Make it 2%. Then get the difference. 1.8 minus equals there. That minus.
Okay, so we're losing $37,000, $37,718.72. That's what we're losing in revenue. Okay, so if we are losing that in revenue every year, and council's direction is to make that up with then a loss of transfer to the energy conservation fund, what do we have to decrease that energy conservation fund by percentage-wise to meet the $37,718?
So that's something that I love to work out to make sure that I get the right rate that will offset that decrease.
I guess I'd just like to clarify, and thanks, Mr. Armfeld, for trying to help us through this. But I guess I've just seen a $138,000 figure that was on the board there that we were losing. Now I'm seeing a $37,000 figure. So this is a $101,000 difference as far as what was just presented to us in the last several minutes.
So what we've done there is just at a very high level. If I add total ATCO revenue coming in plus what we're getting in from Fortis, we get 1.885 million. So what is 2% of that number? 2% of that number would be 37,000. But now, if you want to go and look at it from each and every segment, then we'll be going to each segment and reducing each segment by 2%.
Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, we've just come up with two different totals and with a $100,000 difference. I'm just not comfortable with that or seeing. Is that just because we're doing it quick here, trying to come up with a figure?
This is combined, Mr. Mayor. This is combined franchise fees for ATCO, Fortis, for the low end, middle end, high end, all three.
37,000.
2% is, we're losing $37,000.
The 138 does not apply. That was just
No, that's
figured
$37,000.
inaccurately. Okay.
And is that correct, Mr. Orwa, that we can consider that 2% as a straight 2% across the board? There's no proportionate amount because the 35% is higher?
And do individual calculation as well.
I know that would make you much more comfortable.
Yeah, I guess we're just trying to look for the base range figure, and or if whatever's in the green fund that there's enough to cover that. That was basically the question to confirm.
Or we'd just be putting less into the green fund. We have the money in the green fund, we're just going.
If I look at the green fund, we're putting $163,149 in at 7.5%.
Yeah, minus the $37,000 off that.
So now we're gonna have to take that 37 out of the green fund.
It won't go into the green fund anymore.
That will not go in the green fund.
Pretty, basically it.
020.
So there's enough.
$37,000 less into the green fund every year.
That's my understanding, but that's why I hire a smart guy like Mr. Orwa. Because my intuitive financial kind of mind is not always correct.
So at a very high level, again, looking at it differently, we have from Fortis, we are getting 1.1999 million, right? So if you reduce it by 10%, by 2%, that's what we have from Fortis. ATCO is giving us 686,000. Reduce that by 2%. That is what the reduction from ATCO. If you add those two, you get 1848,217, which was the same number here. So that means I took this other side, we just took it combined, reduce it by 2%. This other side, reducing it individually, we also end up with the same figure. That is from the macro level of the whole franchise revenue. So now the question is, how does that 37 translate to reduction in energy conservation fund? That is exactly what I'll be working on.
So, and in a certain degree, sorry to kind of speak freely, it is irrelevant. If council is directing us then to reduce the energy conservation fund transfer by 37,718, so we just come up with that percentage, and that's how much it's reduced by. If the direction from council is 2% across the board, then we reduce the energy conservation fund by that amount, and we report back to council, this is how much it's gone down.
But we're also losing, I'm sorry, is that 1.1 million or is that 117?
It's 117. So the original one was 1.1999. That's the revenue from ATCO.
So reducing it by 2% costs us $67,000.
No.
Okay, that's where I'm, because the 2% of the total number is what we're losing.
Put their 40s right there for them 40s. So reduction 100%, we reduce it by 2%, so it's 98%. That's the 0.98. So if you take the original amount of 1.19 times 0.98, this is now the revenue that we'll be collecting from Fortis. And then from ATCO, we add 686. So if you reduce it by 2%, 0.98 again, that's what we'll be collecting from ATCO. So combined together, that is the amount of revenue that will be coming in.
So at the end of the day, for simplistic, and I'm that way too, we take the 2%, we don't have to give you percentage to which to reduce the green fund, just reduce it by whatever number that 2% come off the franchise fees. The balance gets removed from the green fund.
Less is contributed to the green fund.
Yeah, less is contributed to the green fund, but that's, is everybody behind this table making the correct assumption, Mr. Orwa, that we can make it that easy? But that is the result. The simple result is then the direction is that we will decrease that amount to the green fund transfer, and that will be a certain percentage that we can report back
To consider.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've
Just for clarification, then we wouldn't need two motions then. We would go back to the original motion where the shortage would be short in the green fund, not the operating budget.
No, because it's two different funds, so I think we need two motions.
Yeah, ideally it would be two motions would make it certainly cleaner for administration, just giving us the direction to reduce by 2%, and then giving us direction to make that difference up by decreasing the green fund transfer. Would be the two.
Okay. I think we've hammered this out long enough. I think everybody's reasonably clear on it then. We do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion?
Just, can she read it back for us, please?
The current motion on the table from Councillor Strohs was that Council directs administration to drop the 2020 franchise fees by 2% to Fortis and ATCO Gas.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? You have a question?
Discussion. So we're going to lose, I'm thinking whatever this 2% is. I asked Councillor Strohs, where do we make that money up at? We're cutting budget. Which service are you willing to give up? Or how much will you willing to raise taxes to get that amount back you just gave up?
Councillor Bruin, I'm saying, and I will repeat again, that the Green Fund would be shorted by that amount. You don't have to increase taxes. You're shorting your Green Fund, so there would be less money on going forward for green projects. So there would be no additional tax increase.
But you're still taking money from your Green Fund that you no longer will have.
But we don't have any projects committed for that Green Fund. This council decides by recommendation from administration where to spend that money on a green project.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I won't be able to support this motion.
All right, once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Second motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, there was a second motion ask requirement.
Mr. Mayor, move that council directs administration to decrease the contribution to the Green Fund by the balance of the net 2% reduction.
Cover enough?
Mr. Orwa, you're all right with that second motion then? Yeah, it's decreasing the Green Fund transfer by the net 2% reduction.
All right, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. On to item 6.2, proposed pathway, 56th Street and 62nd Avenue. Mr. Arfeld.
Yes, this item has actually come from yourself, Mr. Mayor, and we've included it as an item for consideration prior to the discussion of the capital items, as it might, the vote might result that it goes onto the list for the 2020 capital budget. So essentially, Mr. Shearer, do you want to introduce it a little further?
Like you said, it came from Mayor Prokop's office. We had concerned residents, and we've seen this too with people walking down the street, especially when it's snow, raining, things like that. It is in concern. So we looked at the cost of the pathway. It's about $50,000. The council may choose to put it in 2020 or 2022 or any year they want, or not at all. So I gave a drawing of the approximate location. It'll be 2.5 meters wide by 245 meters long. So I'll leave that up to council's discretion.
Thank you. I believe everybody's seen that initial letter ask with the recommendation that's just been confirmed by Mr. Shearer as well. So any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I drove past there myself the other night and seen exactly that with 4 people, and I'm prepared to make a motion that council directs administration to add the 56th Street pathway to the 2020 capital budget for the consideration with an estimated cost of $50,000.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Chavez?
Just a question to Mr. Shearer. Is the pavement considerably cheaper than a concrete sidewalk?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah, especially if that's the year we're doing all of our asphalting. So I would think we get a significant saving on that rather than 50,000. Yes.
Thanks for clarification.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.3, 2020, 21, 2023 proposed amended and/or proposed operating budget. Mr. Arfeld.
Yes, I'm going to pass this back to Mr. Orwa now. And Ms. Dam for more conversation.
Thank you very much for passing over it back to me.
You're welcome.
Just before even I say something, first of all, I would like to make a statement that at this point, I would like to defer or withdraw the 2020-2023 budget putting into consideration the potential impact that we are seeing from the provincial side budget cuts. And then secondly, put into consideration also what just transpired a few minutes ago in terms of franchise fee, because the budget was already balanced. So putting those into consideration, again, I have to scratch my head again to make sure that it's balanced. So, His Worship, I would want to withdraw the 2020-2023 budget for now to factor in the provincial cuts in budgets. Now, I'm just not ending it there, but I'll continue to discuss the potential highlighting areas where we think there could be some impact on our budget. So based on that, I think it's right for me. After listening to the budget speech and listening to the Municipal Affairs Minister and the potential cuts that they're showing out there, now what they're explaining was at a very high level. They're talking about the big numbers, but now we want to see how does that impact municipalities? What is the trickle-down effect when it comes to TABA? So I just want maybe to discuss with Council and maybe highlight a few areas as we move towards budgeting, balancing the 2020 budget once more. Now, one, of course, responsible fiscal management, as they said, they would like to balance the budget for the next 4 years. Now, moderate cuts are out there, 2.8%. That's about 1.3 billion lower than the 2018-2019 levels. Something must have happened in the 90s. Probably I was not here then, but times must have been hard in the 90s when they cut it by 20%. Maybe that thing could still be very fresh and vivid in your memories around here. The next one, you can see they have 62.7 billion in deficit. And I think what they're driving there is the borrowing level, 2 billion interest to service those debts. That is all more than what they say is 17 out of 21 ministries, and that's what they're running away from. Now, listening to the speech and the Municipal Affairs Minister, the budget themes they're having out there, one is living within our means. So that means we tighten our belts, and that will trickle down back to municipalities, and then better and smarter public services. Continue down. Now, so let's try to highlight areas that will have impact on the 2020 budget that we just balanced. Now, the first segment, probably I will not touch, we'll touch it again when we're looking at the capital budgets. But I think in that area, MSI, it will be the operating MSI. You can see it's now 30 million. Now, if you recall, from 2016 all through to now, we've moved from operating budget, MSI operating from almost 230,000 and 2019 sitting at 64,000. So what that means is it's not likely to get what we thought we would get in 2020. So again, that might have some impact on what we have already balanced. Now, just to show you a few things, just a little bit, if you put MSI, pull MSI, so that you see the trend on what has been going on. You can see on the left-hand side, operational MSI. Now, 2015 at 66, then we moved to 229. You can see it's diminishing as we go along. So 2020, we are projecting because we don't know exactly how it's going to look like. So that's going to have some impact on our budget as well. So that's something that we wanted to put into consideration. Now, Alberta Community Partnership, of course, some of those things will depend on the projects. We'll look at the capital side. The Federal Gas Tax Fund, again, this is the one I like most. It looks steady, and I think we are on track with that one. The impact of that will be seen on the capital side of the budget, but I'm only working on the operating side. So if you keep on going, police. So the police, there's the fine revenue. So we are likely to see a potential change there. I just spoke to the chief of police just a few minutes ago before I walked in. Now, they're trying to increase the provincial share of traffic tickets from 26.7% to 40%. So in other words, they want to retain more money and give you less. So what that means is already the budget that has been balanced, there's going to be potential impact on the fine revenue on the police side. this is one of the reasons why I told you I want to withdraw that budget to make sure that we look at some of those things. So there's a big reduction there on the fine revenue. The rest of the police staff, other grants remains the same. So that's an area that we have to look at. The next one would be the school requisition. The school requisition, remember, what we have in the 2020 or 2019 was based on the 2018 numbers, and then we projected those numbers to 19 and 20. Just a few, I think it was on Friday, they sent out the requisition. And what we're now doing is looking at what they have against what we projected, and we see the variance there. And what the impact there, with school requisition, it will be in and out, but the impact there will be either under or over levy. Did we levy more or did we levy less? Then we see the impact as it rolls into the following year. So again, we're going to see some impact there. And now, STEP program for students, that is the one from the province, because we do have two of them, one from federal and one from the province, but this particular one is from the province. We're also looking at what really happened in that area, because it's not very clear right now from what we are reading out there. For STEP programs, that's where we get some little grants for our seasonal students, the students coming in. So in case it goes the other way around, then we have to look at where to get funding for those students, or not hire those students, or reduce the number. So again, there'll be some potential impact on our budget. The next item is grant in lieu of taxes. I'm just highlighting the potential areas that will have impact on our budgets from what I read on the provincial budget, whatever they already have out there. So with grant in lieu, we do have some crown properties that are exempt from taxes. And of course, in Taber, we do have 2 federal properties out there, and we also have 2 provincial properties. And they are grant in lieu of taxes because we still get that money back, but they are crown corporations and we're not supposed to tax them. And this is just to assist municipalities with the cost of providing municipal services. Now, again, if you listen to what was said there, there is also potential reduction in that area. We don't know exactly how that looks like. I know the city of Calgary has been hit, Edmonton has been hit, and potentially other municipalities will be hit. So we have to dissect those numbers to ensure that whatever levy that we thought we were going to get, we want to see how it looks like. And again, that is going to affect our operating budget. And we're just waiting to see most of the guidelines will be posted soon from the municipal affairs. So based on those areas, as I said earlier, I'm now waiting to start connecting the dots to see if at all probably I could balance that budget again. Because all that I've talked about is what the minister talked about, and they're at a macro level. That's looking at a bird's eye view. Now we have to drive in and look at the micro to see the worm's eye view, how it affects Taber. And I think potentially that's why I said earlier that I would like to withdraw that budget and see how what I've just explained is going to impact us.
All right, so just to clarify, Mr. Rohr, you're asking that for item 6.3 and 6.4 as well, related to capital projects?
No, just for operating.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So any questions arising? Councillor Thames.
I think if we're going to look at tabling 6.3, I think we also need to do 6.4, because I think there's going to be factors that come into that in the capital. And if we're going to look at one, let's look at both. I would prefer to table both for, would a month work, Corey? 'Cause 2 weeks is going to be pretty short.
I think we're pretty comfortable with November the 12th. Are you comfortable with November the 12th?
I'm comfortable with that, yeah.
Yeah.
To do both 6.3 and 6.4?
Yeah, we would really like to bring back and get some direction for sure on the capital to see where council is thinking on some of those projects and whether we push them forward or not. But certainly we can bring both packages back on November the 12th. If Mr. Orr was confident, he will have that information back from Municipal Affairs. I trust him and have faith that he knows his job. So.
Everyone on council good with that suggestion? All right. Item 6.3 and 6.4, don't need a motion on that, just to understand it will be for the November 12th meeting agenda, correct?
Yeah, you're satisfied with that, Mr. Earl? Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Let's move on to item 6.5 then, encroachment agreement 6217 48th Street, Mr. Armfield.
Yes, and this is Ms. Monks is coming up to discuss another encroachment agreement, please.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council. So the Planning Department has received a request for compliance for 6217 48th Street. In reviewing it, it has been identified that the homeowner's fence encroaches into the road right of way for 48th Street by 0.46 and 0.4 meters respectively. Because the sections of fence do not pose a concern for the town, it would be acceptable to leave them in place with an encroachment agreement to give the town protection in future should any works need to occur that might require removal of the fence. The homeowner's lawyer has prepared an agreement, and under the encroachment policy, anything greater than 0.3 meters requires council approval. So we would request approval to enter into this agreement and allow the fence to remain in place at this time.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Thames?
Mr. Mayor, I move that council authorize the mayor and the CEO to endorse the encroachment agreement for 621748, 6217 48th Street, Lot 42, Block 46, Plan 8610118.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.6, department reports. I'll go through these individually. If anyone has a question, please stop me. Administrative Service Report. Engineering and Public Works. Public Works Treatment Facilities Report. Recreation Department Report. October HR Activity Reports. Fire Department Reports. Planning and Economic Development Reports. Finance Activity Reports. And CAO Activity Report. All right, no questions arising. Someone prepared to make that motion. Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that council accepts the department reports for information.
Okay, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 6.7, Mayor and Councillor reports. Start with Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a busy time. Enjoyed going on the facilities tour just recently and seeing what other communities have. I think it was worth our time and effort. I think there was a lot of camaraderie that was built there and some new ideas, fresh ideas. I attended Chamber of Commerce meeting and some of their initiatives that they're working on. We attended, Councillor Strovis and I and yourself attended a trout pond meeting. Maybe you weren't there, but the mayor and I attended that, and I was happy to attend the Pheasant Festival supper the other night also.
All right, thank you. Councillor Stravos.
Yes, Your Worship. I guess my highlight would be a month ago when we played host to the Nottagawa delegation. They were very pleased with the community. They had a great time. They really enjoyed our fire department and the police department. They don't get that kind of interaction in Japan that we showed them here. The interesting part about it is we had a good conversation with the superintendent of schools, after the week was finished, and he agreed that the kids need to have more interaction here because they would like to attend to the fire department and the police department more and spend more time with those things so that they could get a handle on that. So they were all very pleased and we treated them well and they were very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Busy month with different projects and events I had to attend. Highway 3 monthly meeting, Highway 3 executive meeting. I attended the Pheasant culinary event at the Heritage Inn, as well as the the Pheasant Supper. All very well attended, I believe, and very well organized. It was a real pleasure to be there. The facility tour along with the rest of you, very informative. Lots of great ideas from
affordable to astronomical prices, but there's different ideas, and I was really glad we did that tour. It's been a busy month.
Thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, to echo what some councillors have already said, the Japan welcome dinner was really nice. Some great presentations from the Japan delegation as well as from our local students. AUMA was also a highlight. Some meetings with provincial ministers. I also had attended the Safe Haven Learning to Lead conference here in Taber, which was very interesting. And the recreation facility tour as well, which I agree was very good and some good information.
Thank you. Councillor Towns?
Yes, attended the meetings I need to attend. And I would like to go back to AME. I think this year's conference at AME, some of the best training sessions that were out there. There was some really good training sessions, and I think the opportunity that we as a council had to meet with as many ministers as we did was really good for the town of Taber, because I think we opened a lot of eyes to some of our provincial ministers as to what the town of Taber has to offer and what our needs are. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And for myself, I'd also like to acknowledge the welcome Japanese delegation and tour and dinner. That was a very fun event and well received, I believe. I think they had a great time there and extremely nice people. And I believe the kids had a lot of fun with that, as I understand it. We had to depart the next day for the AUMA, but Councillor Chavez indicates things went very well there, so that's great for the town of Taber and our delegation as well. Once again, AUMA was very well done, and I believe this is a record for ourselves for being able to meet with 4 different ministries. And we had some great input and great dialogue and discussion with them, and hopefully that'll come to fruition for positives down the road. The recreation facility tours was also very well done and very informative and beneficial for all that attended. Attended the small business breakfast meeting here last week, and as well as a Building Brains breakfast meeting, which was also very well done. And then last week I was also invited via Minister Hunter to the Edmonton Legislature for the budget presentation, which was some 400 or 500 people that were part of that under invite, and that was impressive to see, and I think glad that we were able to be part of that under invite from Minister Hunter. So that would be my report. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Bruin.
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
The Japanese delegation, how many attended?
How many?
There was 9 students and 3 adults.
Were they dignitaries or just chaperones?
No. The superintendent for the Higashiomi school division was here, Mr. Fujita. There was a principal from one of the junior high schools. Haven't got his name off by head. And then a teacher a lady that was a health nurse that worked in the Board of Education with the students. So they are chaperones as well as they hold official functions in the Higashiomi school system.
Okay, so no dignitaries, mayors, or
no.
Okay,
no.
Thank you, Joe. Sounds like it was really good.
All right, someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council accepts the mayor and councillor reports for information.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And on to standing item council requests, item 6.8 to Mr. Armfeldt.
This is council's opportunity to ask administration any questions you may have or give us any direction in the form of a motion.
All right, thank you. Anything arising? Seeing none, there's nothing other than just where we're at with what's on paper there.
Yeah, I can give a bit of an update on the couple at the top are going to stay pretty consistent until we host that event next year, I guess in 2021. Can provide an update on the third one, Resolution 577. We have found some funds in our operating budget to acquire a fountain for the pond in Westview, and we determined that will provide some relief to some efforts that we put in over the summer in order to flush that pond. There's an employee that flushes that pond fairly regularly in an attempt to address the odor and the algae issues. Typically, those types of ponds have circulation fountains in them, so we are moving forward with that purchase, and we will be installing that for the spring of 2020 for the pond in Westview to look into if we can continue to address some of the odors and some of the algae issues. And we have reached out to the Tabor Museum, though we have not heard back in an official capacity, but when we do, we will be letting council know what we hear.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Your Worship, just a little note here for administration that the Tabor Golf Course had received a grant for circulation pumps for those ponds. Perhaps, I don't know if it's still out there or not, but they got a grant this year in order to circulate the water in a couple of their ponds, and it's helping considerably. So there may be some grant money out there to help out as well.
All right, so with that, nothing's coming up new, so we don't need a motion in that regard, correct?
Correct.
All right, just ask for an adjournment for our 30-minute break there from someone willing to make that motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, move that we adjourn do we need 30 minutes? Can we make it 5:10? 25 minutes? We have delegations coming, right?
Yep, we do.
Yeah.
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn until 5:10 and reconvene.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carry unanimously. Thank you.
I don't know. I'm sure we will.
All right, could you have a motion to reconvene the meeting, please? Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. On to delegations, item 7.1, delegations Family Violence Prevention Month proclamation. Mr. Armfeldt.
Yes, we have members here from the Safe Haven Women's Shelter looking to give a presentation to council. I see Miss Kat Champagne coming up.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me today. I just wanted to, you've obviously seen our proposal and our declaration. So last year in 2018, we were lucky enough to have November declared Family Violence Prevention Month in Taber. It is a provincial-wide initiative that's recognized all throughout Alberta. So my motion and my application today is just to have that something that we continue every November so that I don't have to come back and spend time in front of you asking for this every November. So the motion would be to include, to have Taber every November, have this as our proclamation, and then we also have a declaration for Mayor Prokop to sign to go along with that. And then that would be it. It's just something that we'd like to have standing every year in November. So.
All right, thank you. And that's just to clarify, was that the 1st, November the 1st?
November 1st it starts, but it's
Yes.
throughout the whole month of November. So that would start, we've started planning, have activities, but it would go from November 1st to 30th every year. So
But that's you want to do that on that date to actually sign it, correct?
we'd like to do it on November 6th, actually, this year, the Wednesday.
Oh, is it the 6th? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
we're-
okay.
No, it's okay. It would normally be the 1st, but we're hosting a walk this year. The
Okay.
1st is a Friday, and lots of people like to take Fridays off, so I'm getting the
Right,
best of
yeah.
everybody's schedules. So
So you want to do that all on the 6th then?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right. All right, any questions arising? All right, perfect, thank you. Someone prepared to make that motion, Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As nice as it is to see you every year, I understand why you don't want to come back. I move that council proclaims November to be Family Violence Prevention Month in Taber and directs Mayor Prokop to sign the official proclamation document during the prevention walk in November.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chavez.
Worship, just for clarification, does that spell out clear enough that it's a carry forward for years to come? Does that, or just for this year, like?
No, that's good because we wrote it that way. The council proclaims November to be Family Violence Prevention Month in Taber. So going forward, November will be known as Family Violence Prevention Month in Taber.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we had that right for you.
perfect.
All right, once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, on to item 7.2, South Grow Regional Initiative Delegation. Mr. Armfeldt.
Yes, and Mr. Casarella is here to talk about what South Grow offers for Southern Alberta, and I'd like to highlight a couple of the initiatives that they're working on, I believe. Is there presentation here?
The PowerPoint at the bottom bar. Sorry, Corey, like on that.
There?
Yeah.
We can both drive, so you can do your thing.
I really like having the steering wheel. Awesome. Thank you very
Go
much.
for it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Corey and councillors. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Peter Casarella. I'm the Executive Director of the South Grow Regional Initiative. I am your employee. In fact, I report to two of your councillors on two different files directly that we're involved in. I'm here today just to give a direct update to council as one of our stakeholders on the affairs of the association. I've got a mandate from my board to get to 50% of our members every year to give that update directly to you. So I'll just talk in brief about what we've been up to over the last year, what we're working on right now, and some specific things that pertain directly to Taber, and answer any questions as time permits for you. So, oh, there we go. So South Grow is one of the nine of the provincial regional economic development alliances formed back in the early 2000s by an initiative of the province and in cooperation with the mayors and reeves of Alberta Southwest at the time, who formed both South Grow and Alberta Southwest. The REITs have been around since then. There used to be more. The nine that exist exist because they learned how to survive and make the model work when the other ones couldn't quite get it off the ground. So over 200 communities in rural Alberta are represented by regional economic development alliances currently, and the idea is to enhance the quality of life, development, and sustainability for the communities in the South Grow Region Initiative by working on projects that none of the communities could do by themselves. We found that when 26 communities all speak with one voice and pull on projects together, they can have far more of an impact than communities working by themselves. And we outcompete other regions where it's just the communities by themselves, pulling by themselves. So what does that look like? Over the years, we've done lots of research, of course, to promote and highlight economic development opportunities in southern Alberta to enable things like the deployment of broadband infrastructure and the growth of the value-added agri-food economy as well. We've rolled out development tools for communities, supported many of our communities, particularly the smaller communities that don't have the staff resources to push these kind of things, in learning about economic development and starting to do their own economic development and preparing themselves with the kind of infrastructure and knowledge base that they need in order to take advantage of opportunities when they come knocking, such as the opportunities that southern Alberta is facing right now, being driven by macroeconomic conditions around the world that are just basically saying, listen, southern Alberta, this is your time in the spotlight, and there's massive opportunity here for you to seize. We provide training to counselors and staff that they might not be able to get through their own community by leveraging, of course, the resources that we can bring to bear on that and bringing folks in from around the region to take that training together. We just had disaster preparedness training in Colehurst the other week, and it was a really, really good session. And we did that in partnership with Alberta Southwest so that counselors from our region could also go to their training session and vice versa. And over the years, we've helped to leverage tens of millions of dollars of external money coming into the region and securing that investment. An example of that I can give you right now is I've just completed research on the economic impact of renewable energy in southern Alberta. We asked the question, what really is the return to southern Alberta from all of the work that we've been doing in renewable energy? 9 projects that are going into southern Alberta right now, wind and solar projects from 2019 to 2022 that have approved permits for construction. So these aren't theoreticals, these are either already being built or they're going ahead. 1.55 billion in capital expenditure, 250-some million in local spend, 52 long-term jobs, 1,800 temporary construction jobs, all of the lease money that's being paid to our landholders, and of course all of the tax assessment for your rural neighbors. And when your rural neighbors have a little bit more money in their pockets, that's a good thing for our urban people too. Makes them better partners when they have more money, right? So, ongoing work. These are our 2018 highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about any of these projects or events that we participated in. Given that it's just me as a full-time staff member with South Grow, this has been busy. We are a small organization in terms of capacity, but we add to that capacity by asking our chief board members to step up and give more to that one thing that's on their desks, that one file. So my 5 executive board members go above and beyond for the entire region to represent and to work on behalf of all of the towns and communities in our region. We've got regional programs going on too. So over the last number of years, we've had a strong focus on multi-year investment readiness, basically getting all of our towns ready to participate in the economic opportunities that exist. That looks like things like our South Grow Community Business Retention, Expansion, and Marketing Plans, which for a town like Taber isn't really a world-class project, let's be honest. You are the largest town in South Grow aside from the city of Lethbridge. And so you have staff capacity to drill down deep and do the kind of projects that kind of go above and beyond. But for most of our towns, this is a real eye-opener for them. It shows them what community economic development can really look like and gives them real examples of things that they could get their teeth into today with the capacity that they have at their fingertips. But of course, this was something your staff were able to look at and learn from and leverage into the big BR&E projects that you did with the JEDC out here in Taber as well. Foreign direct investment projects. So we got into foreign direct investment attraction a number of years ago when Southgrow sent a business-to-business delegation over to China. That was a real learning experience. Since then, working with the Chinese has gotten a bit more difficult, but working with the Europeans has gotten a lot easier. And so the foreign direct investment work that we've got going on right now is actually tapping into both markets, making sure that we profile and identify investment opportunities here in southern Alberta and put those profiles on the desks of all of our foreign trade officers, both from the province and from the feds, both in Europe and Asia and beyond. Broadband work, I've got a lot of broadband work on the go. Southgrow has been very successful in getting broadband to our rural communities. Half of our towns are at the CRTC targets. The other half we're almost there with, and I can talk more about that if you like. Global Marketing Initiative, of course. The past 2 years we've been showing up together with some of your ECDEVs out from this area at everything that has to do with value-added ag in the province and beyond, as much as we can get to, and making sure that southern Alberta puts its stamp on the national and the international scene as a destination for value-added processing. Regional transportation corridors is something Southgrow has been able to work on with Jack and the others at the Highway 320 Development Association. Southgrow is not lobbyists, but by providing the admin services to that organization, we are able to put the weight of the economic development community behind that initiative to try to get Highway 3 twinned. It's been encouraging, the work that we've done and the profile raising that we've done for that project. Of course, with the budget being what it is, we've got an uphill battle on that front as well. If we can get dedicated year-over-year funding, even if it's a small amount, that is a victory. And renewable energy promotion, of course. This opportunity is not tapped out. And as global energy demand continues to spike, we're going to see a lot more come in. I'm not too sure what's happening with this page right here and why this is blacked over, but those are our 3 research projects that we have undergo right at the top there. I just presented this cost-benefit analysis of rural broadband in Alberta to Service Alberta and the ADM up in Edmonton last week. And this project right now is a project for all of our towns and villages that don't yet have fiber to the premises or have met the CRTC benchmark limits. And we're going to be rolling that out with a support program to help them get to that in the next few months ahead of us. There's just an overview of our current strategic plan that we're just over halfway through for the 3 years. Carly was involved in having that crafted the other year as well. And the big thing that I'm working on this fall, of course, is our Water Security Forum. Part of our strategic plan when we crafted it a year and a half ago basically identified that water security is the fundamental priority of all of the communities in the Southgrow region. It's the foundation of our success and our economy. So we're bringing together a group of stakeholders on November the 7th to basically talk about some of the issues that lie ahead of us and to hopefully make a commitment to meet once a year. We're talking about representatives from all of our communities, from the irrigation districts, from the watershed councils, on the assumption that the missing piece for water security in southern Alberta, it's not technical expertise, it's not opportunity, it's political will. And if we can form and keep together a block of stakeholders agreeing on high-level issues going forward year over year after year, then we've got a group of people we can turn to when a project needs to get done and put them behind that project so that all of our communities are in partnership with the government of Alberta and there's agreement across a broad Big Tent spectrum, and so we can provide that missing component so things actually get built, policies get changed, legislation gets done, or heaven forbid, another reservoir gets put in. When I go to make communities, I look at opportunities that exist for them as well. And so sometimes, well, actually, no, there's opportunity everywhere in southern Alberta. You don't have to dig too deep to find it. For Taber, you guys have a load of opportunity, and your challenges have nothing to do with chasing the opportunity, but with managing growth. When I look at things that are going to be absolutely essential for Taber over the next few years, affordable housing here, that's going to be a big one. As you start to tap out the capacity of your industrial sector and see real job growth in the region and beyond, and as more industries move into the counties around you, taking advantage of those low tax environments with access to the labor pools that Lethbridge and Taber provide, being able to give a range and a spectrum of housing options to people is going to keep people moving here and keep your community growing and keep those young families staying in the region to take advantage of those good jobs instead of going down the road to Lethbridge or beyond. Entrepreneur programming as well. I mean, it's a real shame that things like Power Up fell through, but that doesn't mean you don't have a group of people really interested in starting their own businesses. We know in southern Alberta that we have a lot of folks who are very entrepreneurial minded. It's just finding the right balance that speaks to people and keeps providing them with high quality training, taking advantage of free services such as what TechNIC is offering through the library system, and giving your people the ongoing training they need in groups of 6 to a dozen. That's absolutely fine. Regional municipal services. I know that you guys have had some of the conversations around policing with the region around you. This is going to become an opportunity for Taber and for the MDE and for Vauxhall to start pulling together and finding efficiencies to meet those budgetary challenges that you're facing. And if you're successful with things like policing, then you can start looking at fire services. Then you can start looking at other services and rolling them into one. There's a lot of local politics that have to be navigated. I completely understand and appreciate that. But from where I'm sitting, of course, it's easy to say these things, that there is a path forward. And when people start to see the wins and see that this is about providing quality of life to our citizens, it's not about individual disagreements or whatever, there is definitely a path forward for Taber to find opportunities there and to be a continuing good neighbor and a leader in this area of the province as well. Long-term plan for industrial infrastructure. I know Phyllis is all over this as well, but when we have these large agri-food businesses come snooping around southern Alberta, they have very, very specific requirements for what they need in order to make an investment. And there's very few places who can actually meet those needs. And so the choice becomes really, really simple. If you can attack the labor side of the equation, the other side of the equation is to get the infrastructure ready, to hire the appropriate experts to tell you what is the infrastructure we need to continue being attractive and to being a competitive environment in southern Alberta for those big places. What do we need if we want to get a fractionation plant, for example, that would provide 50 to 100 jobs and be sustainable for 40 to 50 years? And make that long-term plan and put in place the long-term budgetary requirements in order to build out your next industrial expansion to accommodate that. And of course, I like to think like things like Taber is far enough from Lethbridge that you really do need to be a community that speaks to everybody's needs. And one of the big successes of places like Lethbridge is you've got that river valley that's adjacent to the community that provides a really high quality of life place to explore and play in. And Taber is almost to the edge of that valley there. If you're looking at further expansions or partnerships with the MD, really developing that river valley environment to be a park right in your own backyard that's just right down the hill to really be able to take advantage of. And of course, the last thing I'll mention briefly is image branding. It's no surprise to anybody that Taber's taken a beating in the national press. And maybe it's time to address that and say, listen, let's get our best foot forward on the national stage with a fresh image and a fresh message about who we are and what we're going to be in the years to come. And of course, Southgrow is here to assist and provide advice and support on any of those issues if you wanted to take advantage of those and look at them. Happy to answer any questions you might have about any of the things that I've talked about today or that I haven't talked about.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Oh,
I actually have one.
Yes.
In your presentation, you made a comment, and I just want to ask you if that was a tongue-in-cheek comment where you said that possible, heaven forbid another reservoir got built. I hope that was a tongue-in-cheek comment because
definitely a tongue-in-cheek
off-site storage
comment.
is huge for southern Alberta.
Yes, I am probably one of the largest advocates for new reservoir development that you will meet in southern Alberta. It's just, when I peddle this message around all over southern Alberta, I don't always get a very, very enthusiastic reception.
To off-site storage. Really?
That's who you're talking to, but municipal audiences are very, very friendly to the conversation.
It's the blood of life for southern Alberta is water.
Agreed.
So.
All right, anything else? All right, Mr. Casserole, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate that so much. Someone prepared to make a motion. Councilor Bruin.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor, that council accepts the presentation from Southgrow Regional Initiative for information purposes.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We're into media inquiries. Taber Times, Trevor.
No inquiry.
Great. Thank you. And I would just ask for a motion to move into closed session, please. Councilor Bruin.
I'll make the motion, we move into closed session.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.